Go ahead.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Voice of Men 360 celebrating Black History Month. We are glad that you are here with us today. We promise that we have a great evening plan where you're going to learn a bit more about the history of Black History Month, the history of Black History Month, and you're going to get to hear a few speeches. You're going to get to hear different poetry. You're going to get to hear a historian speak more about Black History Month. And so we would like to start off with our Canadian national anthem because we are based in Canada. Okay, I'm not quite sure, but I don't believe that did work. Correct, Sivan?
Oh, it wasn't working?
No, I didn't hear anything. I'm not sure if other people did.
Okay, hold on. Give me 1 second.
Okay, thank you. We're having technical difficulties. So while we wait for O Canada to play, why don't I just introduce myself? So my name is Tolu Adeosun, and I am an assistant secretary here at Voice of Men 360. I just want to thank Voice of Men 360 and the team for giving me this opportunity to host this important celebration to me, Black History Month. Voice of Men 360 was founded on International Men's Day, which is celebrated in I believe 91 countries or so, and it's based on the 6 pillars of International Men's Day. So to promote male role models, to celebrate the contribution that men make, to focus on men's health and well-being, to highlight discrimination against men, the inequalities that men and boys face, to improve gender relations and promote gender equality, to create a safer world for everyone, and that is what Voice of Men 360 is based on. So I'm going to see if Sivam is ready with our O Canada national anthem of Canada.
Let me know. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
I don't know. How is it now?
And so up next in our program, we have Dr. Jerome Tilak Singh, who is from Trinidad and Tobago, and he's the Global Coordinator of International Men's Day.
Hi, hi, I am Jerome Tilak Singh, and on behalf of International Men's Day and World Day of the Boy Child supporters, I want to wish my brothers and sisters of African descent all the best for Black History Month, which will be celebrated not just in North America, but in many countries across the world. During Black History Month, let us look for positive role models. Let us try to improve our lives. Let us see how we could create a better world, a world without racism, a world without religious bigotry, a world without class divisions. Let us try to create global peace. Let us look for solutions. Let us attempt to create harmony. And let us celebrate our Black heroes and heroines of the past and the present. Thank you.
That was a very nice welcoming speech from Dr. Jerome Tilak Singh. Thank you, Dr. Jerome, for acknowledging our Black History Month celebrations. And so we also have a YouTube video up next. It's a video of elementary school children explaining why we celebrate Black History Month in their own words. So I'm going to let Sivam take it away.
Hello. What? Hello.
Can you hear?
Yes.
Black History Month is a commemoration vocab word for Black activists, another vocab word, who took their time out to go fight for what they feel is right. Like Martin Luther King had a speech that violence is not the answer and no segregation. We celebrate Black people that helped us change history. It reminds us to be strong, even in politics. Wait, what matters is what's inside of you and how you act to other people.
Doesn't matter if you're Black, if you're white, just always celebrate it because you know the struggles Black leaders went through in order for you to be here right now. Even though we may have the different skin color, we're still the same type of people, no matter what.
And a lot of people, they don't see me for who I am. They see my outside appearance, but they don't see what I have on the inside.
It's very hard to grow up knowing that you're Black and you have a lot of personal prejudice against you.
I see it on the TV and I'm like, is that going to happen to my brother? Is that going to happen to my dad? And I always have that in the back of my mind every time that I'm home and they're not home.
Black history is important to me because I have to remember where I came from and I have to remember who came before me.
Because you have to look at the things that Martin Luther King Jr., Rosa Parks, and Malcolm X did for us Black people. So people can't treat us unfairly because they think some type of belief. Because we are all people and you need to stand up for our rights. There's still discrimination. There's still discrimination in all parts of the world, in all parts of the United States. We should still fight for what we believe in. We should still fight for getting what's right.
You know, that was really lovely of those children to talk about what Black history means to them. Black History Month is a reminder of what we've been through as Black people, and hopefully it will help us to move forward and, you know, get rid of things like systemic racism, biases, microaggression. This is the reason why we here at Voice of Men 360 are celebrating this, because we know that Black men and Black boys face a lot of issues, as mentioned in the little video we just watched. And so we here at Voice of Men 360 are here to support men from all races and creeds, you know, and we are here to acknowledge that the struggles that Black people face are real, particularly Black boys and men. And so with that, I'm going to introduce our president. His name is Sivam Velalutham. He is the founder of Voice of Men 360, and he is the initiator of a few other groups such as International Men's Day Sri Lanka and International Men's Day Maldives. He is also the host of several live talk shows, including Vili, I in English, panel discussions in Tamil at Voice of Men 360, and our Society in Tamil at Tamil America TV. He has been giving blood donations for many years, and he has done this 57 times. Sivam continuously has been helping several community organizations for more than 20 years, and he's held various positions, including youth coordinator, team leader, program coordinator, event coordinator, assistant secretary, vice president, public relations, and more. He is always passionate about helping others and making a positive impact in their lives. And so we're going to welcome Sivam here today. Thank you, Sivam. I think you're on mute.
Yeah, give me 1 second. Somebody wants to try to get in here, and just maybe we can start with the Shannon message, and then I'll come back.
Okay, so it seems like Sivam is busy working on some other things. Well, he is the one also in the background coordinating everything, making sure things run smoothly. It's not an easy job. And so at this moment, we're going to actually jump to a speech or a little talk on Black History Month by Shannon A. Oyanira. I should actually be able to say this because it's a Nigerian last name. And so I'm just going to give a brief history on her. She's interested in Black history and in eradicating racism in the Black community from an early age. Shannon's keen interest and passion in these areas helped her to realize that she must do all she can to educate others and raise awareness of the rich history of Black people. An enthusiast of reading, travel, and writing poetry, Shannon has an indescribable passion and thirst to not only know more about history, in particular slavery, historical and modern, but to educate people on these issues and to assist in stopping in it from continuing. An honors graduate with a bachelor's degree in history and Caribbean studies from the University of Toronto. She has a master's degree in slavery studies from the University of Hull in the UK, a certificate in adult education from George Brown College, and currently is undertaking her PhD at Queen's University. Shannon has expanded her knowledge and information about Black history and the issues that the Black community faces both locally, here in Canada, and internationally. Apart from participating in conferences and workshops relating to the Black experience in history in Canada, Shannon is currently the first vice president for the Ontario Black History Society, where she helps the organization preserve, celebrate, and spread the rich Black history of Ontario and Canada. Shannon is the co-founder of Oya Niran Education Support, which is OYES, an educational organization created by herself and her husband. She continues to use these platforms to teach young Black people about Black history. Shannon Oya Niran was born in Scarborough, Ontario, and currently resides in Pickering, Ontario with her husband and their sons. So we're going to watch the presentation Shannon has for us today.
We learn about the accomplishments of men and of this evening's event. Good evening. My name is Shannon Oyenarian, and I am so excited to be part of this evening's event. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be bringing you greetings and just to talk a bit about Black History Month. We are celebrating 25 years of Black History Month, celebrated here in Canada. It's just such a wonderful time where all Canadians can come together to learn about the history, the 400-year history that Black people have in this country, and just celebrate, learn about the history, learn about the accomplishments of men and women, and just Black Canadians on a whole who are doing amazing things for the country and who have done amazing things for the country. So Black History Month, just to go into a bit about the history, because I'm a historian, so always got to go back and talk about the history. But Black History Month started off in 1926, and it started off as just 1 week, and it was titled Negro History Week. And historian and author, a journalist, Carter G. Woodson, he's known as the father of Black history, is the one who introduced Negro History Week. And Negro History Week was the precursor to Black History Month. So Carter G. Woodson really just created this week and then a month to really highlight and bring awareness to the history of African Americans in the United States of America. As we know, there's a long history of African Americans being brought over to America. So Carter G. Woodson wanted to highlight that history a lot of the times, and still even now, the history of Black people, African Americans, African Canadians are not in the history book. So he wanted to bring awareness and highlight the history as well as the achievements and the accomplishments of Black men and women. So that's how it started. And a lot of people, I get a lot of questions of, why only 1 month? You know, why is Black History Month the shortest month of the year? But there is a reason to it. So Carter G. Woodson wanted to have Black History Month in the month of February because of two important men that he thought really were allies and contributors to African American history. The first one being Frederick Douglass. He was an enslaved man who escaped slavery and became one of the most famous abolitionists. So Frederick Douglass, his birthday is in the month of February. And the other man is Abraham Lincoln. Lincoln, one of the first presidents of the United States of America, who signed the Declaration of Independence Declaration of Independence in the United States. So those two men, Carter G. Woodson thought were very important and wanted to just kind of put the month and the week along with their birthdays because of all that they had done for Black people in the United States of America. Now, here in Canada, we are celebrating 25 years of Black history, as I mentioned. And it was in December of 1995 where the Honorable Dr. Jean Augustine, who was the first Black woman to be MP in the government, in the federal government, brought the motion forward to be voted on to have Black History Month celebrated and recognized in Canada. Now, all of her colleagues had to vote. Nobody could vote no. If somebody voted no, then the motion wouldn't be passed. But thankfully, everybody, all of her colleagues voted for the motion to have Black History Month recognized and celebrated here in Canada. And in February of 1996 is when we first celebrated Black History Month. Now, other countries in the world celebrate Black History Month, another country being the United Kingdom. England celebrates Black History Month, but they actually celebrate it in October, whereas we celebrate it in February, us in the United States. So Black History Month, it's really just a time to really learn about our history. And it's not just kept to the 1 month. You know, we have a saying, Black history is Canadian history, and it's just a part of the history of this country. So I encourage you all to learn, to keep learning about Black history here in Canada, and just really feel empowered and to continue to educate yourself with great organizations like the one that you're a part of. So thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your evening and happy Black History Month.
What a wonderful educational session that we just had right there. There was definitely some key takeaways from there, talking about how long we've been celebrating Black History Month here in Canada. It originally started, I believe she said 1926, but then it was only in 1996, I believe that she said that it was actually passed as a motion for it to be celebrated nationwide. And so we are grateful for the people that have come before us, that have fought so hard for our freedom and have fought so hard for this to be recognized in February. And then also, like she said, Black history is part of Canadian history. So talking about history, which is what we are here about, our next video is actually going to highlight and showcase the banjos that the slaves used to play on, because music was a huge part of the history of Africans in the States. And so they would use music to kind of help them to, when they were feeling low or just to pass the time. And so we have an individual that's going to tell us more about the type of instruments that they used to use. And I do believe he's going to play some tunes for us. Sivan, would you like to take it away?
So this is an example of the kind of instrument that might have been played by early slaves on the plantation. It's just a gourd with a stick. And this is a more modern rendition of an accounting from Gambia. And when they stretched this skin, they filled it with sand so it wouldn't collapse. And then they'd stretch the skin on, and then cut a hole and get the sand out. And the tensioning system is just tacks. And it isn't that they brought this instrument with them, but they brought the idea with them. And they might have been playing instruments that are more like this small calabash gourd banjo. And it may not necessarily have 5 strings, but it might have 3 strings, or it might have 4 strings, but it always has one short chanterelle string. And you can see that short string on this one. There's one short string. So basically they've got a short string, a little bit longer, and a little bit longer. But what is really important about the African heritage of the banjo in America was the playing style. It was down picking with the thumb like that. So basically they were playing, so it was down picking thumb. And that became like the stroke style that the minstrels were using, which they copied from the slaves. Now this is the tune, which is a minstrel tune from that period. It's called Jim Along Josie. Around the turn of the century, people with a lot of money, refined people, started getting interested in the banjo. And they were playing, ragtime, or they were playing classical banjo style, which is more of a finger picking, you know. So they started doing a finger picking, up picking, almost like a classical guitar playing. And this particular banjo doesn't have frets. There was still persistence of fretless banjos even then. And then this basically became the standard instrument for a lot of players, which is the Fairbanks banjo. And Fairbanks started introducing these kind of like tone rings, which project the sound. This is a style of playing that's called frailing or clawhammer. So you have the plantation slave style of playing, which was down picking, led to the minstrel style, and from the minstrel style to the clawhammer or the frailing style. But then there's a hybrid of that style, which was called round peak style. But it all kind of goes back to the African playing style of the banjo that came over in the mind of the African slaves when they came to the U.S.
So we just learned more about the origins of the banjo and the type of styles that the African slaves would play in the States, which then has actually led to the modern playing styles of the banjo today. Thank you very much for finding that video, Sivam. So up next, we have a speech by Courtney Carroll. Courtney Carroll's an educator. He's an author, investor, and speaker. He has served families in the GTA as an educator for the past 26 years as a classroom teacher and school principal. Courtney is a firm believer in the power of personal development. He believes that when we feed our minds, what we feed our minds, impacts how we see the world and determines our success. Courtney is a graduate from York University with honors BA in psychology and kinesiology, and he holds a Bachelor of Education degree from the University of Toronto. His passions are education and finance. He has a calling for empowering and inspiring others to always reach for the things stored up on the top shelf of life. Let's welcome his speech. Welcome, Courtney.
Courtney, you had to unmute.
Thank you, Tulu and Sivam, for inviting me. I certainly don't have a speech ready. That was
Okay.
the request from Sivam, but I just wanted to come on tonight just because I think this is such a worthwhile endeavor and such a wonderful platform for us to come together and really just celebrate Black history and just have rich discussion. So thank you for having me as part of the panel. I think the question that Sivam had sent out to me was, in light of everything that's going on, what are some of the challenges that face Black youth today? And so without going into a speech, I think I just wanted to speak from a personal standpoint, not just from an educational standpoint, but simply from the position of a Black man in Canada. I think all of us can see what's happening around our country, not just here in Canada, but globally. The events of the summer, notwithstanding, we've seen some really outlandish behaviors that have finally come full circle in the social consciousness of people. Things that have been going on for years, finally being captured by cell phones and distributed globally. And people are starting to see that the inequities and the anti-Black racism, the anti-Aboriginal racism, anti-Asian racism, and so forth that have been there and have been a concern in our communities for so long, people are finally starting to see it full, in the public domain. So in answering the question, what are the challenges facing Black youth? One of the things I know as an educator and being of Black ancestry is the first thing that people notice when I walk into a room is my color, right? They don't see an educated person, they don't see my background, they don't see my degree. And so we're growing up in a society where, because of privilege and power and what we call implicit bias, and we have them as well, everyone has their biases, but the way Blacks have been perceived in media, in society at large, our Black youth have a definite disadvantage for how they're perceived by the majority in society. And so what do we do and how do we support? I believe the educational system needs a huge reform, and reform in the sense of the textbooks have always been written from Eurocentric perspective, white Eurocentric perspective. And much of the richness of African civilizations prior to slavery have been taken out of the text. And we need to educate our youth, right? Starting from the home about the power of the African civilization, right? Modern medicine, a lot of it's derived from early medicine in African civilization. You're thinking about the architecture, you're thinking of astronomy, you're thinking of all the rich things that were happening there, all the pyramids in Egypt. There's all the mathematical foundations and formulas that have been told to us through our history books that were part of Greek ancestry is really part of African development. So there's a lot of history that needs to be taught. And I think my generation growing up in schools, this generation currently and the one prior to me, we've never been told our true history because it's always been hidden. So we've got to empower our youth with truth, because with that truth of knowledge about our ancestry, about how bright we were, how gifted we were as a civilization, that changes the way we see ourselves. And how you see yourself determines how you hold yourself. It determines how you walk. It determines a sense of power and pride you have in yourself. And when you walk, you can see an individual who has power in their stance and how they're perceived by others in society. When you have power in your stance and a belief in who you are, you can go very far. So we need to educate our students. We need to educate our youth that this importance can't be underlooked. So that would be one aspect that I think needs to be done as far as improving, as far as giving our youth something to hold on to. Will it come in the form of educational reform? Unfortunately, I don't believe it will come quick enough. I think a lot of what needs to happen is our community in forums like this, in conversations at home, where young Black families need to get together and say, this is important. We have to encourage our kids to go to school, go get an education, right? Oftentimes, it's like school is an afterthought. Well, I hope you go. And then we want to make sure our students understand that they need to go, because that level playing field with education opens doors. And so these are other aspects I think that are really important for our young people to understand. When I look at a couple other aspects I just want to speak to, and one of the things I said to Savannah, I'm more of an individual that likes to answer questions when they're posed of me rather than kind of ramble on, without any kind of definitive end in sight. But those are some of the things that I think are challenges facing our students. But I think the biggest hope for us right now is that we have this change afoot where the world is seeing the inequities that we talked about. We're starting to see people mobilizing themselves that don't necessarily look like Blacks or Browns or so forth. And their voices are important, because without those in privilege taking up the fight for those who've been oppressed, it's hard to make change, right? But we can't look at that as things are going to change overnight. This is a conversation that needs to continue to happen. We need to start building momentum and building, our youth to be vocal activists in a positive, peaceful manner to look for change to take place. And we got to encourage our kids to move into areas that they can affect change, areas such as education, areas such as government, right? Those people in politics are the ones who create and put policies in place to affect change. So we have to get our communities to start standing up and moving towards those power positions where they can have influence on the communities that we live in and that represent us. Okay?
Thank you.
That's basically all I wanted to say.
So, okay, since you say you like to answer questions, I'm going to
ask too many questions.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a couple questions. Is that okay? So you're in a position of power. You mentioned that. You mentioned educate about our history, but also educate, get education. So as an educator, how are you? Are you a principal currently?
I am, yeah.
Okay. So how are you making a change and impacting the young men and young women that you particularly Black or people of color that you work with?
I think one of the things that we as educators have is a platform. And as an educator, one of the things I say to my staff, we have power and we've got influence. When you are in front of a classroom of 30 students, you have a captivated audience. How you go about your business during that day will either empower them or suppress them. So power and privilege comes with the title. In our schools, as a principal, I have some sway around the direction. My job is really to safety guide the school, support the communities. One of the things I've done in my career is to have small leadership groups where I bring students together, whether it's student council, student government. So you bring these students together to hear their voices, because one of the things that we find that many students lack is that their voices are being listened to. And so as a principal, I believe all principals and all schools should have a platform for student leadership, for student voice. Students need to be able to say, this is what we're lacking. This is where we see a need within our school. This is why I'm not seeing myself reflected in the learning or in the teaching and so forth. So I try to do that in all the schools that I've been in. I'm now in a primary school, and even at the primary school with the grade 3, 4, 5s, you can still have those positions and start growing students early to understand what leadership is, to understand democracy and how to use their voice. right? And so forth. So those are some of the things I do. As far as the leading of the school and pushing teachers to be uncomfortable and courageous in their conversations. I'm a Black man who went through the system in the school here, and I did not have a Black teacher until I was in university. And so many of our students right now are growing up, or many students who are in my demographics did not have Black teachers in front of them. And so the white teachers in front of them, not through any fault of their own, but the curriculum that they were given to teach did not really address the issues of Black power, Black knowledge, Black influence, and so forth. And so they grew up not teaching it and not also learning it. So we have to have a shift in their position. They have to see and understand that privilege does play a role, that there is systemic racism within our school structure as it is, and throughout governments and throughout society. And we have to be bold and courageous enough to address those things, call them for what they are, and listen to the voices in front of us. So I preach that on a daily basis, and I work with my communities to address these things through our parent council meetings and so forth.
Thank you so much, Courtney, for what you do to try to build allyship, to try to help young boys and young ladies to understand, that they can be proud of who they are, proud of their history, but they can also do something about it to make lives better for the future generation. Thank you.
Definitely. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you so much for your time today. So up next, we do have a poem, Still I Rise by Maya Angelou. And we have Kayla Sutherland that has pre-recorded this, but I'm going to give a little history about Kayla. So Kayla, much like what Courtney said, grew up in the system, in the educational system here in Canada. She's a 22-year-old Black female and a recent graduate from the University of Toronto. She holds a Bachelor's of Science degree with a specialization in mental health studies, and she's one of the few Black women within her family to have achieved this. She's currently a feeler working with the mental health organization Feel Talk, which aims to provide clients with non-judgmental, affordable, and accessible emotional support. Her passion has always been people and providing them with emotional support, as well as aiding them in problem solving, strategizing, and executing plans of actions within their lives. She also has extensive experience working with children as well as youth within the school system in summer camps and school initiatives. Moreover, this passion has led her to study a discipline that would give her a greater understanding and insight into certain behaviors exemplified by children, youth, and adults. Now that she's completed her undergrad, she has gained a more narrow desire for helping children and youth from lower socioeconomic communities. And she believes that because they're being left behind by a school system not meeting their needs, specifically speaking, those who are marginalized and racialized in society. So her goal is one day to become a social worker, working with the school board in order to learn, develop, and implement proper education, as well as, just providing them with guidance and working in extracurricular programs that will be geared towards these children and aiding to have better future life outcomes. Perhaps we should connect Courtney and Kayla together. So without much further ado, we'll let Sivan play the poem that she has prepared for us.
Hi everyone, happy Black History Month. My name is Kayla Sutherland, and tonight I am going to be reading a poem by the late and the great Maya Angelou. This poem, I believe, is perfect for Black History Month, specifically because it really touches on the fact that we as a people have gone through a lot. We continue to prevail, we continue to increase and rise above our trials, and we continue to triumph over those who have thought of us as less than. Black History Month is a time when we as a people get to reflect. We get to look back on our history, although some of it is not beautiful, although some of it is very painful and also upsetting. It is a time when we can look and thank those who came before us, who paved the way, who were brave, who were strong, and who decided to stand up to make a difference so that our lives now can be better. And it is also a time when we can reflect on the strength of us as a people, the fact that we stick together, the fact that we're brilliant, we're inventors, we're creatives, and we've definitely made our mark in this world. And so this is why I chose this poem. I truly believe that Maya really wanted us to remember that even though there have been a lot of different examples of being held down in history, of the many times that we have, experienced pain and loss, we continue to rise and we will continue to rise. So without further ado, I will read the poem. You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still, like dust, I rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? 'Cause I walk like I've got oil wells pumping in my living room? Just like moons and like suns, with the certainty of tides, just like hopes springing high, still I rise. Did you want to see me broken, bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cries? Does my haughtiness offend you? Don't you take it awful hard, 'cause I laugh like I've got gold mines digging in my own backyard. You may shoot me with your words. You may cut me with your eyes. You may kill me with your hatefulness, but still, like air, I'll rise. Does my sexiness upset you? Does it come as a surprise that I dance like I've got diamonds at the meeting of my thighs? Out of the huts of history's shame, I rise. Up from a past that's rooted in pain, I rise. I'm a black ocean, leaping and wide, welling and swelling, I bear in the tide. Leaving behind nights of terror and fear, I rise. Into a daybreak that is wondrously clear, I rise. Bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave. I am the dream and the hope of the slave. I rise, I rise, I rise. Thank you.
That was well read by Kayla. I really love that poem. It speaks volumes to me about the resiliency of folks, Black people. We've been through so much, but we keep having to rise to the occasion, overcoming all the biases, the racism, everything that we face, and our challenges on a daily basis. And I find this poem, I use it as a reminder to continue to rise. So thank you, Kayla, for contributing that to tonight's event. Up next, we have an individual by the name of Lester Herbert, who's going to speak about fatherhood. He is a husband to a loving, beautiful wife. He is a father of four, and he's also a grandfather. His profession is always centered around security, more so in the marine environment. And he's actively involved in rehabilitation work with the Christian-based institution, where they have worked with men and women to return to active and productive lives after their struggles, whether they were vagrants or in prison. Prison intervention has borne remarkable returns on hardened criminals, and they have turned their lives around and are now model prisoners serving the Lord. So he is here to speak with us tonight. Can we please welcome Mr. Lester Herbert?
Totally. Give me 1 second.
Yes. Okay.
Hold on. I know it's frozen. Can you see me?
No,
No.
no.
No, the screen is actually frozen.
I think it's frozen, correct?
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
um, why? Give me 1 second. Kayla just taking over.
Well, it couldn't have frozen a better face.
I know. I don't know. The video somehow is not moving on.
Well, I mean, this is what happens when you have these events. Something's bound to happen when we're dealing with technology.
She's alive.
Yeah. But I hope our participants are learning something and enjoying themselves so far. Do we have any questions or anybody that would like to jump in and say something or add anything to what we've done and said so far?
Maybe you can invite her and then ask her to
Oh,
speak a couple of minutes.
so unfortunately, she's actually multitasking right now, so she's unable to join us on camera. But she is watching and listening, but she's just unable to join us. Okay, she said she can join us. She just won't be able to turn on her video. So Kayla, please join us and jump in and say hello to everybody. Since we're looking at your beautiful face, we might as well hear your voice.
Yeah, exactly.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Kayla.
Hi.
Thank you for allowing me to be a part of this program. I was a little bit nervous at first, but I think it turned out well. And Tulu, you read my description very well, so thank you.
Thank you for writing it.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, so Kayla, can you just tell us a bit more about yourself? I know I did some reading, but you're a young person. You and I know each other. You're studying you want to be a social worker, much like me. Can you just tell us more about your passions and what drives you?
I think for me personally, growing up as a young Black woman in today's society and just seeing everything that's happening with the Black Lives Matter movement, and also, things that I've seen in the school system myself, I just feel like there's a need for the children, especially in our communities, to have programs in place and just people that will really kind of stand up for them when they're younger, so that a foundation can be built so that when they become adults, they don't end up in the broken jail system and fostering and things like that. So that's a big passion of mine, which is part of the reason why I want to become a social worker. I feel like in the school system, specifically in certain neighborhoods, I see that certain children are just left behind, and not that it's always on purpose, but there's no one who's really advocating for certain programs, like after school programs, breakfast club programs, things that can get these children integrated into the school system to make them feel like they're welcome and not just that they're there and they're another number. Then they'll increase in society better than they have, if that makes sense.
No, thank you. And it sounds like I know you. Like I said, I know you personally, and I know you have two brothers actually. So
yes,
when you think about, and they're still in the school system. So when you think about them being in the school system, knowing what you went through, and then what's going on with society today, how does that impact you?
Personally, I feel like my brothers are mixed, and so I feel like for them the experience is a little bit different. And especially in our Canadian school systems, I feel like sometimes the systemic racism is very subtle. Sometimes, you know, the teacher might pick on my siblings a little bit more, or maybe not choose them when, you know, they raise their hand, or just small things. Or if a dispute happens, they're quick to jump on another child's side and not take their side. And so it's a lot of subtle things, but things nonetheless that when you think about it and you see how other children have been treated, you wonder, you know, why there's a difference, why it seems one-sided. But I wouldn't say that, you know, they've experienced anything terrible, which I'm thankful for. And I definitely can't say for me as well that I've experienced any, you know, overt racism, but still there are definitely things that happen that, you know, kind of make you think a little bit more, like, does it have something to do with my skin color or my gender? Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And I think I totally agree with you. You know, I have a son in the school system, and just certain things that you go, I wonder if this is because he is Black, paying more. And their research proves it, that they do pay more attention to our Black youth, that they want to, it's almost, there is that bias there, that they're looking for something that may not be there. And honestly, I felt that a lot of times, that you know, my son's teachers would say things, and I'm like, okay, why are you searching for something that's not there? Why are you looking for a problem that's not there? He's still a kid. But it's almost like they want to look at our little boys and like they're older than they are when they're just kids. And so thank you for bringing that to the limelight. And I remember there was one incident that occurred where they called me, they said my son, he hit a kid or something. And I was like, okay, so what happened? But they weren't able to tell me the full story. So I'm like, okay, I hope this is not going to be in his school record. I hope this is not going to be, you know, because they're both poor historians and we don't actually know what happened and there's no witnesses. So I mean, kind of like, I'm not even really sure why you're calling me, because my son's not even going to get in trouble for this. But just those are the things that it makes you wonder, like, okay, you know, what if this had happened to my son? Would the same phone call be happening? Would they, you know, would they be caring as much about him? And so, you know, I thank you for highlighting that what are the things that you saw with your brothers and even what you witnessed for yourself too. Thank you. Is there anything else you would like to talk about today, or even about the poem that you read and why you chose that poem? I mean, I think you kind of mentioned that in the video, but yeah, anything else?
I just want to mention one thing, or kind of say one thing that Courtney had mentioned about how important it is for other individuals who are not minorities, when they see injustices, or if they feel like something might not be fair or might not be equal for their counterparts, for them to say something, because their opinions and their voices do carry a lot more weight than ours do alone. So I thought that was a great point. And I think that's one of the ways that other people who, you know, maybe haven't experienced the same struggles that Black individuals have, that's one of the ways that they can relate and show empathy, by when they see something, just saying something, you know, just calling it out, because sometimes people don't realize that their actions are racist or they're prejudiced, but when you do shine light on it, it kind of makes that person more aware and changes, you know, their own implicit biases. And as for the poem, I did mention a little bit in the video, but believe that as a people, we've experienced a lot, but I think that it's important to not just focus on the things that we've experienced that have been hurtful, but to focus on where we are, how far we've come, and the fact that we are still increasing and we're doing really well, despite everything that has happened. And so that's really why I chose the poem, because I feel like there is a positive side to Black History Month. Although it is only 1 month, it's good that we do have the time to kind of shine light on the great things that Black people are continuing to do.
Right, and all our contributions in history to
Right.
Canadian society and the rest of the world. Thank you so much, Kayla. So Sivam, are we able to still have Lester speak?
Sorry, I need to restart the computer though. So just stay there, Lester and Tolu and whoever is there, just stay. I cannot see you guys, sorry. So you guys just stay there and then you can rejoin. You can use the same link. You can
Okay.
rejoin. Okay, just give me 2-3 minutes. Okay, please.
Okay, okay. So I believe Sivam said he's going to have to log off and log back on.
Okay.
We're just going to hang tight and then we'll have Lester speak to us after.
Yep, sure.
Thank
Okay,
you
thanks.
for your patience.
Yeah, no problems.
Thank you.
All right.
If anybody else wants to talk, feel free to.
Okay. You know,
Yeah, yes,
I'm still on, right?
yes, yes. But I think
Yeah.
wait, because
Okay,
it
no,
is being oh, yeah.
yeah, I was very intrigued by the discourse on the history and why it came about. But I must say that my experience would have, as you would have read, is from a faith-based sort of institution. And in the readings and studies, you would have seen where the progenesis of the races encompassed based on the narrative of the hands down. And one of the more prominent people I've seen in the biblical narrative, also historical, are descendants of the, what we say, the so-called blacks. They have already been at the forefront of every move that God has, or as I say, any long-lasting change, shift, reset in the world has always been on the back or carried by those of the African descent. I will just allude to one. I just use Martin Luther King. At that point in time, there was inherent, and as I say, if you look at it historically, the move is almost 50 years ago, almost like a, what you call 50 years is like a jubilee, you know, like a returning of. We also had the Black Power movement back then during the 60s, 70s, where it originated, Canada, because it was West Indian students. I can't remember the name offhand. You remember they had this standoff in the university when they were blamed for burning the university and as they were labeled rebels and things like that. But that was the push because of the inherent or systemic biases that were perpetuated to them, not only as Caribbean people, but as Black people. And they stood up. And out of that came the Black Power movement, where you have Trinidadians like Kwame Ture. You had, well, the history won't be there, but you know, as much as I could recollect. But they carried the change, the mantle for change on their backs, only because they had a passion. You know, they had the inherent, you know, capability to carry it and see it through. Out of it were birthed some, as I say, political platforms. In Trinidad, we had those in terms of the NJAC that they continue to carry the mandate about Black awareness. But my thing is understanding from whence you came, to appreciate why you are who you are and what you can be.
Mm.
And until that is satisfied, we will always be, you know, the victims, being perceived as the victims. No, as I said, I have to use the narrative. In all the so-called predominant races, there are inherent patterns in their behavior and their cultural preferences. Some, you know, as you say, is that to carry out your gifting or your talent, there's an inherent, as you say, what you call like in computers, you know, that inherent code that only you could fill or bring out when the right buttons are pushed. I have seen in terms of athletic spheres, No, can I use this term? In the blessings of Noah and his sons, and that's, I'll be dealing with fatherhood. The concept of a father passing on blessings onto his sons, sometimes by virtue of how he names his sons, the blessings that he bestow upon him. They could know, as I say, I wouldn't say it seals their destiny, but it shapes how they move on. One of them was, his son mentioned that, okay, not a slave, but a servant. And because he was a servant, there will be certain inherent aspects of him. And I've seen it. Yes, we were always perceived as slaves, and as I said, the bearers, the chief servants. But because of that, we are given the power of strength, athletic prowess, even as we saw earlier on, the designers of musical instruments, right? Even in the things that we do as servants, but to help others make their task easy. We have seen, okay, talk about Thomas Edison as the person who designed the light bulb. But again, forgive me, I'll get the information and send it back. There was also a black inventor, the elevator, the automatic transmission. They were all designed by people of black legacy, right? Why? In them was pronounced by Noah on that seed where he will add the value. We have athletic prowess, and let's use Michael Jordan. I just use this term. Phil, what was his coach name? I think it was Phil Jackson. Forgive me if I'm wrong. A Caucasian guy, an African American guy, both doing what they do best. What came natural to Michael Jordan made him a millionaire and one that we look to and emulate as a black person. Phil Jackson coupled that or tried to be the best that he could be at basketball, but at the end of the days, he reverted to what he knew best, to manage, to bring out, to nurture, to culture. And Michael Jordan, recognizing his place and his position, was able to take what Phil Jackson was passing on to him, and by virtue, they left a legacy with the Bulls that has a long-lasting legacy, and it enriched all of them that, as I said, understood the role and the position. Let's go back to the slave days. The African man again, they had them as slaves, they call them blacksmiths. They designed tools and fashion implements to make their work easier. Today, Mr. Klein copied it, perfected it, and now he's using it. You understand? His managerial skills, his foresight. He took it as an industry, and today his children, as I said, don't even have to work just because the name Klein. They are partakers of the industry. My question is, seeing we are capable of the inventors, or as I say, the originators of our thing, why are we not enriched as a people today? We keep relegating or going back. We have a classic example in Martin Luther King. He had a dream, not just about 50 something years ago. There was a move, the Malcolm X, the empowerment, the enrichment. We are seeing the same types and patterns even now in the Black Lives Matter movement. What are the platforms, or what could we expect coming out of this? Would be, as our people become enriched, or are we going to relegate, going back to that place 5 years where we have to have a resurgence? We have to have a what to call it? This thing coming over again like cycles, like a pattern. When we will take up our mantle? And this is what I deal with fatherhood here, because I think that's the missing ingredient in keeping the legacy alive, so that we will be sustainers and, as we say, carry the mantle forward, so all generations will preserve what others die for.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because it's true. Like, why are we still having to fight for our rights, fighting for against systemic racism, fighting to be able to advance, fighting to be able to walk the streets. And like, why has nothing really changed? My husband was actually saying this last night too. He's like, why are we still doing this? Why has nothing changed? Like, are we basically back at square one? How do we move forward? How do we not have to revert back to this in another 10 years, like you're saying? What is the solution?
Fatherhood.
Okay,
Fatherhood.
so why don't we let you take it away? Let's hear it.
Okay. Yeah, I must say I am privileged to be in the company of such rich and well-informed, you know what I mean, people of Blacks. You understand? And I'm not seeing it from a pride position because Sam, as the admin, is a man of vision, you know? And as I say in this, when we as a people come and operate in our rightful place, then the world could be a better place. If one of the races is out of place, the whole place is in a mess. And I'm saying this, fatherhood is one of the integral components in bringing this into fore. I would take it from the position of a patriarch. You know, I use Abraham. Abraham is considered the father. You know, there's sometimes, I don't know how much you all are familiar with Sunday school code. Father Abraham had many sons.
I am.
Abraham would have been, you know, the father of 3 distinct races, which most of us follow in some way or the other. We call them the Hebrew. We call them the Arabians, what we call, well, I mean, their religion is Muslim. And by virtue, the Christian. But Abraham also had sons with Keturah. You know, we're more familiar with Isaac and Ishmael, but he married a Black woman by the name of Keturah, and we have the Midianites who came out of him, and I won't go to the stories, but Abraham was considered by God a man of faith. Even before there was religions and let's just say the religious concepts like the laws, Abraham was a man that understood what fatherhood was about. They didn't have the gospel. The gospel sometimes refers to him. Why was Abraham different? One of the mandates that God said, he said he's a man that he will teach his children. In other words, school them, nurture them, remind them. And Abraham was not only just a teacher, he was a high priest. He understood what a spiritual, the importance of a spiritual connotation in terms of, you know, the legacy that could be had. Because, you know, at times we as fathers want to do all that we can. We work hard, we provide, you know, we counsel. But the ingredient that will add sustainability to all that we work hard to acquire is only kept with a spiritual foundation. What I say is not spiritualism, but a deep understanding of your role and your purpose as God has created you for. And until you satisfy that, then you'll be going all over the place. One of the things that I mean, I'll just use it, I won't lecture per se, but I'll use my life as an example. You know, my dad was a hard worker. He did well at providing. But then at the time as a counselor, a friend, you know, even discipline, he would leave discipline into my mom. You know, the embrace, to feel loved by, that wasn't there. I felt that from my mom. And I think this is where fatherhood needs to come back to that place where a father could hug his son. And I think it adds validity to the manliness, because most of our males being groomed and shaped by the mothers tend to carry the same emotional good and dysfunction of our mothers. Why I say this? Daddies are sometimes absent because my dad's pursuing to provide for all of us. He would have, how to put it, there were habits that he would have started to practice. One of them was alcoholism, you know, lying with the boys after work, you know, at the expense of spending time home, but a good provider. But I never got the hug from my father to validate my manhood. I never was, as I say, stroked by my father to say, look, yes, you're strong. That is so absent in the male. We have the females doing it. Hence the reason why at time, okay, our sons need to stand for anything. They revert to that dysfunctional, and not, don't get me wrong, we move from, having the patriarch, which in God order, don't get me wrong, in God order, is needed, the validation of the man to add structure and balance. Remember, when one component of anything is out of place, everything goes awry. We have a lot of mothers, strong women. Even if you go back to slave days, the mothers was left with the task of nurturing, bringing up, carrying the legacy as much as they knew, even as much as they pain when the man was out in the fields producing, and become strong because that's his natural. He became a good procreator. Have this woman here go into that plantation. They even used to loan the slave to other slave plantation to impregnate women so that a strong seed will be carried on. How many of that is so inherent? And I'm not saying in the predominant African, but there's something that transfers to those that are in the diaspora. To soothe our pain or from the hard work, we develop habits, whether drinking, alcohol, or substance abuse, to deal with the pain of providing. And then by so doing, we become dysfunctional. Mm-hmm. Where are our sons? Where are our daughters? Where are our wives? They are burdened with bringing up when, as you say, the purpose of the father was not only to sow a seed, the woman is the incubator, but the man is the one to raise, not just to sow a seed, but to prune, to nurture that tree, that child, so that it could grow into, a productive tree. Or I just using it, paradoxically, a tree. They are offsprings, but there's no one to prune them. Look at the school system. I remember going to school and having male teachers. There was a certain level of respect, discipline. What has happened? The male is under attack. He has been replaced. Because as you say, the job is no longer termed as you say, the woman as the keeper of the home. She is now the sustainer of the home. Because even the job market is hard for men to get a job. Because of the system, the school system, our young men are not taken to education as the girls are. So when time for the paying jobs, in some instances, they say women are not fairly paid, but they are getting the jobs, corporate jobs. And if a man has lost his ability to provide, he becomes an abuser. When the woman is making more than him, there's a level of threat. His masculinity comes under threat. Coming back to fatherhood, he's supposed to be a historian, the storyteller. I remember my father telling stories, about his African heritage, where it was passed on to him that his dad was in Tobago, another island, and he had a cousin in Barbados. And they will beat drums. And they were able to communicate with one another and send deeds. That when the letter reached, Daddy had already known what his uncle not Daddy, his father would have said. He already knew what the uncle would have said because they communicate via the drum. You understand? The power of storytelling, the historian. That is so lacking because fathers have relinquished that role because of the system we live in. Fathers have to say to be a provider. That is one aspect. He spent hours, sometimes working 3 and 4 jobs to make it happen. I would just say this, that paid me a lot as a young person, not being able to hold daddy and get the assurance. No, there were other families around, and don't get me wrong, where we live in Trinidad is a multicultural society. And I would see Mr. Rampasad, an East Indian guy, coming home and his children going to meet him and they would go in the gallery and talk and thing. And I would watch that and emulate that. And don't get me wrong, his children now are more, as I say, productive and more assertive, even in their trade, because most of them have businesses now. In other words, the father was hardworking, but he left a legacy where his children would not continue down that road. And at last, and I could tell you, based on the father and his input in the children, there's legacy, there's continuance. My dad, come home, go and sleep, get up by 5 to go to work. When you try to initiate contact, go and talk to your mother. You understand?
Mhm.
But then I came to a place of maturity where I understood the pressures he was under. And I tried to bridge that gap. And it's only when I came to a level of maturity, 18, and I say this, I was going down a very dysfunctional place. Yeah? Started to look towards, like smoking and becoming just like the dad that I didn't want to become. You understand? Started to go down the drinking, but somehow my body rejected it. So I never became an alcoholic. I tried to smoke, but somehow my body rejected it. So I discontinued it. I tried marijuana, to ease the pain or just to be socially accepted, like we see today. It just didn't work because I never wanted to be outside our control. And that was bringing me to a place of, losing it. But I must say, I won't say the indoctrination, but coming to an understanding of God through surrender to his will and his purpose. I mean, I don't want to sound religious, but this is my experience. You know what I mean? The intrusion of Christ in my life and the reading of the word brought me into a holistic understanding of who I am and what I have to be. And that I saw a change in my behavior to my father. I forgive him. And then when I enroll on becoming a husband and a father, everything went well. Until, you see, there are certain habits that we consider as, they say gene. Heritage, they have a man, he will have about 3 children outside, but they all have the same characteristics of that man. He wasn't there to nurture them. Some people say, we how to put it? We become who we are either by nature or by nurture. But here it is, daddy not there to nurture you. So why are you just like him? People say, hey, walking like that man down the road. Hey, so-and-so is your son? That is your father? Yes. And we look at genes, that part of us that we all reproduce in our offspring. And by virtue, we look at the genealogy, the study of genes. But there's a higher component to it. There's a spiritual implant that carries both for blessing and both for curse, both for building and breaking down. It so happens because in our pursuit of the secular and reasoning and rationalizing, we continue to miss the mark. So fathers now are looking at the sons and the daughters as from a psychological point of view, but not knowing the spiritual side. I was able to heal because of forgiveness. And I believe forgiveness is the platform. Otherwise, we continue to repeat. And there was the role of the father to teach, to train up the children from his experience. Because as I say, there's no cookie cutter that you'll stamp and say, right, this could be a good father, this could be a medium father, this could be a bad father. We all are transitioning as we go along. It's a hit and miss. Because as a good father, you have to be able to seek out your sons and know what they are capable of and direct them into that path that you know will be right for them. And so, as I said, the pattern of Abraham, before he died, he blessed his children. He laid hands on every one of them and spoke forth their destiny. And today, we are seeing it if we open our eyes to see the legacy of his pronouncement and blessing his children because of the relationship as a father he has with them. A chief servant. Sometimes fathers want to be lauded on, but we have to be a servant to our sons, our daughters, and even by an extension, the society. But many of us have moved. where we are very proficient at the things that we do, servants to people outside, but in our own homes, we are dysfunctional. What or how can we bridge that gap? You see, today men want to, the fathers want to be good fathers, but he's under pressure. We are people, we listen to everybody else, but we don't speak. You know, even the best counselor, and I mean, there's one component of Abraham, he was a counselor. But every counselor needs a counselor. And how many men do we have? And I'm saying, I thank God for this platform. We could be naked and not ashamed. You understand? We could deal with the issues, open up, and find working solutions that we could go and practically, you know what I mean, practically apply it to our life situations and see the outcome. And this has been my walk so far. Everything I've seen here, I have put it to practice in my life, and now I challenge it to people. So I'm using my life as a platform, both the good, the bad, and the indifferent. Not in Western here, but you know, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Yeah, but I've been using it now to instill, to motivate, and moreover, bring a legacy. I just want to end with this. My eldest son, who I always call a pattern on myself, because when people see him, they say, boy, you just like your father. He say, even call himself Young Herbs, you know, like a duplicate, a clone of his father. And he died by accident, you know, motorbike accident. And it was the greatest pain I ever had to encounter. You understand? But in him dying, you know, sometimes, you know, like as a father, you always have to be like a prophet. And I mean, when you say a prophet, it's one that sees down the road, or, you know, have an outlook into the future. When he bought that bike, it was like, you know, nah, this is not for you. This is not for you. Get rid of that. No. I threatened, you know, I tried to persuade, but he went down that road. But his death was a platform for my revisiting fatherhood, from not just being a provider, but also being a lover, you know what I mean, of my children, embracing, hugging. I mean, my grandchildren benefiting more from it than anything else. You know, a protector of everything that we have, not only in terms of defense, because as I say, my mandate would have been in security, firearms and that kind of thing, but not only in the natural, but a protector of the legacy, what you actually want to see it, right? Because the forces want to take away that from them, the inheritance. So we also have to be protectors of the inheritance, that rich legacy of our Africanness. What is our Africanness? Our strength in being forgivers. How many times have we been treated as slaves, but yet the first people to forgive, the first people to, as you say, you know, hold out their hand. Sometimes the hand that's shaking you, betraying you, but yes, that's our inherent. So sometimes we say we keep going back, but you see, unless we have the fathers to remind us of these things, we relegate to the negative. It's time to pass on a legacy that is lasting, not in dollars and cents, but the rich spiritual legacy. Fathers need to get back to that place, to be the high priest, not just the provider, the protector, and not even a friend, a disciplinarian, but get back to that place. That's the only way that we will really understand, not our male listener, but our masculinity. It will not be challenged by the others, or as I say, I won't go into that, but by a man will know he's a man. And there's a total distinction between a male and a man. A man accepts responsibilities. A man will die for, not from. And we need men to be fathers. We have a lot of male misguided. Time to return. And I'm telling you, I have one son remaining, you know what I mean? And I am seeing aspects of myself. But one thing I was told about my son, people say that, you know, so many times we have to die to see a legacy. But we have a thing we call in Trinidad a week, where people come to offer the support and the condolences and things like that to support the family until the time of burial. And every night it will grow by 100 more. So like the first night I had 2, the second night I had 300, that kind of way. And one of my supervisors, a person who I consider, you know, at that point in time, a failure. You know what I mean? Because to me, he wasn't giving me what I deserve. But the death of my son caused me to see life in a whole different picture. He said something to me. He called me Mr. Herbert, something that, you know, I cherish up to today. He said, you know, most people die and don't know what they left behind. But here you see a rich legacy. The people here are testament of either your son doing something right or you, they coming for you. But I could say this, it was a compliment of both. Because what I was or what I am inherently, I chose to pass it down. The year before, in that same Black African month, I was telling about the Black Power movement, because these are the things that are hidden from our children. You see, when you see a gangster or as you say, you know, the media is a medium of, as you say, programming. Our young men are being programmed with all the negatives. If you want to get rich, you have to do it dying. You have to be a rapper, you have to be a crapper. You understand? Something like that to engender wealth. And it was not so. Our forefathers, somehow or the other, missed the opportunity. Hard work never kills. There's a continuance in hard work. And that I see that in him. You know, a hard work. When I went into his place of work, they would say, wait, I know, you know, childish room here. When they told me of his work performance, his work ethic, I said, wait now, I did something right. And my desire was to make my sons better men than myself. I am now living in the legacy of my son because he encapsulated everything I wanted to be, hope to be in 25 years. He was a husband to his mother, a friend, a comforter to his brothers and sisters when I was outside. You know what I mean? Providing, but not being there to be the chief servant, the protector, the nurturer, the counselor. He was there for them, and he takes people on his work. A rich legacy. So I'm telling you today that it could be done, but fatherhood needs to be reestablished. I live in a multicultural society, a blessing to me, because I could look, observe, pattern. I don't only have to pattern the wrong, but we need to. The same people that, as they say, I mean, in your diaspora, we look at the Caucasian and how, yes, they are misfits, but there are also people that are fit role models, you know. So our role models don't only have to be of African descent, but we have to know what we're looking for, pattern it, divorce ourselves from the cursing or the negative, embrace the positive, and now pass it on as historians, as teachers, as storytellers, pass it on to our children. Because not all bad is bad, you know, it's all based on your perspective, you know. So I thank you all for the opportunity to grace your presence, and this work will continue.
Thank you so much, Lester. And I want to say I'm sorry for your loss. I can't even imagine what it's like to lose a child. But thank you for sharing about the legacy that he left, and that you can see when you, as a father, when you decide to take up that mantle and be a good father and be intentional about being a father and instill values into your children, you could see that legacy that you've already established in your son. As even though he passed on, people were able to testify to that. So thinking about this, and this is something that we're going to be doing more on in the future with Voice of Men 360. We will be talking more about fatherhood and legacies and what what men and boys can do to be the men that they need to be the father that they can be, and to hopefully change our future generations. Thank you. And so thank you so much, Lester. So I actually wrote a poem. I'm not a poet. I do write songs. So I guess, I don't know, maybe that's a form of poetry, but I've never written a poem that I've actually read out loud. But, this came out of frustrations as a mother, to my son. My son is quite young still, but from the age of 1, we've struggled with things about him. I remember the first daycare he went to, they said that, oh, he's aggressive. And I remember saying, well, why would you say that? He's a baby. Why label my child from the age of 1 as aggressive? I mean, there's other terms you could use. And so I've, and then I remember one time, another daycare, they accused him of saying he would kill a child. I'm like, well, that's not, my son can't even speak properly like that yet. Are you sure that's what he said? Did you give him the benefit of doubt? And so I've always fought for my son, and he's just 5, turning 6, but it's been a struggle as a mother, a mother of a Black child. And so, I wrote this poem based out of that, the pain it's been to be the mother to a Black child, to fight for my son. And, I grew up in New Brunswick, which is more of a Caucasian part of Canada. And I know that my parents struggled with raising us, a Black family in New Brunswick, but, you don't even know what they really truly went through until I'm raising my son. We're living in more of a Caucasian part of the GTA. And then I'm like, only God knows how they felt raising us as kids and being the only Black family, oftentimes in the schools that we went to. So I wrote this poem called I Refuse. I refuse to let my child be a statistic. I refuse to let my child be sad. I refuse to let my child be seen as dumb. I refuse to let my child be labeled. I refuse to let you take away his Black boy joy, joy, joy. I refuse to let my child be seen as angry, aggressive, or violent. I refuse to believe that he's not capable. I refuse to not listen to my child, because if I don't, who will? I refuse to accept your opinions of my child, because there's more to my child than that meets your biased mind. And so I wrote that because that's exactly, what I wish I could say to some of the educators that my son has had. But then, of course, I don't have the boldness to say, but I wrote that out of my frustration. Because, like Lester said, we need to, know our children. We need to advocate for our kids. We need to see their destiny and help them to get to that point. And so we're going to, there's one last thing I do believe we have for us today. We're going to listen to some music played on some different traditional instruments from different countries. So Sivan, would you please take it away?
Sure. Before we play the music, just want to share a few words with you guys.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
It's a really, there are different words to share, but it's a honor. At the same time, it's a proud to be part of this initiative or a celebration, because it's not much difference, the Black history, and if I look at our history, there are a number of histories in around the world, and we all go through the same struggles, same pain, same challenges, and the issue is we don't really educate ourselves. Not only ourselves, what I mean by that is when we talk about we need to educate our young generation, or even myself or other people. We don't necessarily, we have to educate other people too, other communities too. We have to share, we have to pass on, we have to share those stories with other minority or in any other communities too, any other ethnic groups too. So that it will help in some ways to understand the struggles, the pain, the challenges that they went through, right? Because most of the times what we do is we try to teach or educate ourselves and within our family or within our circle. What will happen is it will stay within the circle, but it has to go beyond that, right? Because when Courtney was saying these are the issues, and when Carla was saying, and when Lester was saying, and it's we have to keep doing that. Many platforms, not only within one community or one ethnic groups, because the same struggles. I went to high school here in Canada. I had the same situations. So there's no much difference. So it's still happening. Nothing is changed. But only thing is the hope, or I would say is, at least if we know it's not a black and white world we are living in. It doesn't matter either developed countries or third world countries, though. Right? It's happening around the corner in our backyard. So we have to accept that. And also because of some influences, some hidden agenda, or whatever you name it, the history, it's kind of like a hided, like Horton was saying, and also it's fading away, and also taken away some ways, and also it's deleting in the history of book, and also other purpose because of the corporation world or anything you can name it. But there are certain population that they don't really know about that. They don't care about that. They don't aware about that. But the history, we have to know ourselves, and also the youngsters, especially because the next generation, they don't have any idea. It's a technology world, and we lost, especially fatherhood. My father was passed away because of blood cancer or leukemia when he was 1.5 years old. So I don't have any idea about fatherhood, but we cannot blame some situation like that. Right now, like because of the war, because of the things happening around us, there are people without even born, have any kind of accessories or luxuries in their life. So compared to that, it's way better life we have. But what I'm trying to say is we have to share the values and the history and the challenge, the struggles, the pain with other communities too. Because if you don't tell, I don't know. Yes, we hear in the news, but media can manipulate or do something else, and it's their part of their commitment or work. But if you, as an ordinary person like you and me, if you don't share each other, there's no point of getting to know those things, right? We just know on the general level, okay, Black community has some issues, some, indigenous people has some issues. We know that, but we don't really see or understand the real problems, the real nature of the root of the cause, what's going on behind that, we don't know, right? So unless if you speak about it, you talk about it, not only the same community, but also the other communities too. So when Tolu is speaking, I can understand, right? Because my son is also turning 6 years old too. So we understand what's going on in the school system. The school system, that's where we had to start. But also, like I said, it's not black and white. It's when we study the curriculum, is totally different from the practical world. So how are we going to tackle? How are we going to help our young generation? So that's where the fatherhood is and sadly, not only in one community or in ethnic groups, but also many community ethnic groups right nowadays. So the younger generation is getting divorced and more separations and more unwanted things, right? And then they are losing, or we are losing the lives in the early stage of let's say even 25 or 35, right? So those are the things. It's not sad, really. It's not acceptable. That's what I always say. So through our platforms, through our voice, if we can change at least one's mind or save one life, that's more than enough, right? Because when the life, the sperm comes, millions of sperm comes on Earth, only 1 or 2 lives comes to to the universe and to this earth. And that lives lives matter. So we had to save them. So that life can do so many things, right? So things like that we have to, if you look at the suicidal rate, it's 4 times, 5 times higher than female. So there's nothing wrong, nothing against a female. Also, we don't any kind of intention, or we respect their issues. As we speak, they are going through so many challenges, so many struggles. Yes, they are facing, but at the same time, we want to create the awareness, or we want to look at the other side of the coin, like what men are going through, just creating awareness what they are actually facing, right? So that's all I want to share with you guys. So I really appreciate all of your input and all of your messages. I was kind of like a shocked to hear Kayla's poem, and even Courtney was saying, but nothing is I to be honest, I can feel it. Those are the struggles we went through. I can see, even I was looking at some of the videos. Nothing, I don't have to, but anyway, thank you. I really appreciate that. Like I said, I just, when I was listening Lester's speech, and I was thinking, okay, we had to have more panel discussion, or we had to have more discussion on fatherhood. Not only fatherhood, also youth, young blood. It's not one time. We had to do more and more. It's good, of course. Couple of things came from the African countries, especially the leaders, Nelson Mandela, and this IMD organization was initiated by Jerome. He's from Trinidad. So yes, we had to bring out, we had to share. So far, 90 countries joined together, and then they are taking some kind of action, some kind of activities. So we have to keep doing that. That's the way we can bring more awareness, right? Thank you. I really appreciate all of you guys. So.
Thank you.
Appreciate the platform.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sivam, for taking our time to speak about some of the issues that's faced in the Tamil Brown community, South Asian community as well. And just understanding our plight and being an ally to us by letting us hold this platform to celebrate Black History Month. We appreciate that. So do we still have time for the YouTube link, or should we just say thank you?
Yeah, we can play this music and then we can finish it up.
Okay, thank you.
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. My name is Sibo Bangura from West Africa, country called Guinea. I was born in a music family back home. So, which is music family back home, we call it griot. Griot, the people who born inside music. And they carry through the same culture from the great-great-parent to the grandparent, to the mom and to the dad. So, like me, I was born in music family, so I was a griot. So in Africa, if you are griot, you can be playing instrument or storyteller. It's not only the griot, all of it play music. Some of it, they don't play music, but some of it, they're storyteller. And some of it play music. So some of the griot, without music, their life is a little bit missing. Okay? So like me, my life is music. So if I can do music, something is missing in my life. Okay, that's how the griot. And back home as well, if you're not born in a music family in West Africa, your parents, they won't let you play music because you're not griot family. But now things change, everybody can do whatever they want to do. So this one's called Kora. So I'm gonna take a little bit of the drum and play that one for you as well.
Can everybody hear the music?
No, not hearing the drums. I've already get the percussion instrument before.
Like it's very low.
Mm-hmm. You know, you mentioned something about the griot and the storytelling.
Yeah, I think that's the his cultural background from Guinea is my understanding. So which is from West Africa, and I think that's what they do, because I was looking it up a little bit. They do music storytelling through music is what I got from that video. And he was playing some traditional instruments to West Africa. I hope you guys enjoyed that, even though we really didn't get a chance to hear the drums, but you can always look up that video at a later date and time. Or I believe maybe Sivam, you could share the link to the video for those that are interested.
Yeah.
Thank you. And so we are going to wrap up our Black History Month celebration. We just want to thank everybody for participating. We wanted to thank our Dr. Jerome Tilak Singh, who is the Global Coordinator of International Men's Day. We want to thank Sivam for organizing this event today and giving us this platform to do so. We want to thank Shannon, the historian, for giving her time to us. I know she's very busy to do the pre-recording on Black History in Canada. We also want to thank Courtney, principal from I don't know which school board, but thank you so much for taking your time to talk to us about what it is that we can do, to be not only allies, but also to help our children to understand why it's important to be educated, to understand where they're coming from. So we do appreciate that. And Kayla, thank you for, not only reading the poem, but also joining us and speaking to us more about your experiences and what you're looking to do in order to help our youth, particularly our boys and men. And then we also want to thank Mr. Lester. Thank you so much for your experience talking about fatherhood, what you have, why you deem it to be important, and how you believe it will change how we as Black people move forward in history. And, I just want to once again, thank you everybody for taking your time to join us today and participating in our Black History Month celebration. We hope that you have learned something from this and have taken away something. And thank you for all your contributions. It's much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me, guys. Great job.
Thank you for coming. Thank you.
Thank you. Well hosted.
Thank you.